Prime Minister Carney was elected, and he overcame a 20-point deficit from the conservative Pulev. And he did so by hammering the Trump troll. Trump said to Trudeau, whom he despised, and vice versa, that Canada, since we provide all of its security and its economy is joined at the hip with ours, might as well be a 51st state. And he kept trying to troll them. If they were adults, Carney would have said this to the Canadian electorate. Under the provisions of the United States Constitution, Trump knows, we know, the Congress knows, the American people know. That's impossible, because you have to get, as I understand it, as I remember, I'm doing it by memory, a 2/3 vote of the Congress, and you have to have 3/4 of the states to bring in a new state. More importantly, the left would never do it because they would feel that would be imperialistic, and the right would never do it because they would not want another California. So there was zero chance, and he knew that, but he wanted to keep going and saying Trump wants to do this and it worked.
What happens when a Canadian Prime Minister wins an election by demonizing a US president, only to realize he must now negotiate with him? Victor Davis Hanson unpacks the curious case of Prime Minister Carney, who defeated his conservative rival not with a vision for Canada's future, but by painting Donald Trump as an existential threat. Carney's campaign thrived on fear of invasion, fear of annexation, fear of being turned into America's 51st state. But now that he's in office, the real crisis begins. Now Carney faces a dilemma of his own making. He vilified Trump to win votes, but now must plead for economic relief and fair trade. Victor Davis Hanson doesn't just call out the hypocrisy. He explains the deeper strategic miscalculations that come from electing globalist elites who campaign on nationalism but govern with dependence.
So now he ran on Trump as an existential enemy that wants to incorporate us, rather than, if he had been a statesman, he could have just said, I like the United States, where Donald Trump knows what he's doing, he's trolling, and he will say that he's not, but don't take him seriously. But he didn't want to do that. Okay, so he did that. And now, what do you do now? Now that you've trashed Trump, you go to Washington. He requested the meeting. Okay, so there's two issues. Trump said defense, because that's the strongest issue, and that's why he mentioned it first. In 2014, the 32 NATO nations, 2014, the NATO nations promised the following, that they would spend 2% of their GDP on defense. The Obama administration quickly discovered in its last 2 years that only 4 or 5 of them did it. People, Greece and Poland, and they wouldn't do it. And he called them, in a New York Times interview, free riders. And he was right. So Trump came in and he got angry and he said everything. We might not even have to, and he did the art of the deal, trolling. And he got 6 to 8 more do it. Then over the campaign and over the seasons from 2021, when Trump left office, these European nations hadn't done anything. And then 2 things happened. 1, the Ukraine war, and it terrified them. And 2, Donald Trump was resurrecting in his wilderness years. They thought, you know what, this guy is like Dracula. We can't keep a state. He's going to come back. So they started to make the 2%. That was the point. Now there's only 6 nations that do it. You know who's the last one to do it? The worst, Canada. It spends 1.37% of its GDP on defense. Now, why does it do that? If it was in Europe next to the Ukraine border, would it do that? No. If it was next to France or Germany and it had a history of World War II, would it do that? No. It does it for one reason, because it's right next to the United States. And it knows that Mexico is the only belligerent of the 3 that might even pose a threat to it, and we're in between them. And if they're worried about Chinese and Russian entrance into the Arctic Circle, there's Alaska with all of these. We have a ballistic missile system in Alaska, an anti-ballistic missile that protects Canada. So what Trump is saying, pay the 2%. Why don't they want to do it? Because it would cost about $40 billion, and they don't want to do it. So then they said, well, we'll wait till 5 more years. So you guys all pay 2%, but we're just going to free ride on you. That was number one. The number two was they keep saying, well, we ran up $63 billion because we give you oil at a discount. And that's why we have tariffs on our poultry and our cheese and our milk, and it has to get up to a certain level, and then we'll stop, Canada. You produce heavy sulfur oil right next to the United States in the center of your country. We buy 95% of the oil you produce. It's a long way to Vancouver. It's a long way to the East Coast. That would be very expensive for you to transmit that to and then find buyers for it. We have refineries right across the border that can refine your heavy crude. So it's very cheap for you to go right across the border, no shipping overseas, nothing that. Right in the interior country to the interior of our country. And we guarantee we buy almost all you have. So why would you then put any tariffs, since you're making a fortune, on any of our goods? And why would you do that? If you're relying on the United States, why would you run up a $63 billion surplus? Why wouldn't you just negotiate and say, look, we're remiss. We haven't spent very much on defense. We're saving $40 billion a year. And you're making up the difference with your military shield. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to cut that deficit by $30 billion. And that means we're going to buy more of your cheese, more of your Wisconsin, Michigan dairy products to make up for the fact that you're buying enormous amounts of our oil. They won't do that. They will not do that. And so he demagogued this issue. And then the other thing is he knows darn well that Trump was not going to invade Panama, that was art of the deal to get the Chinese out of the canal. And it worked. Rubio went down there as a masterful diplomat, fixed things, and it looks like there's a 50-50 chance that BlackRock will take over the entry and exits of the Panama Canal. Everybody knew he was not going to invade Greenland. He said, what was the point he wanted? He wanted Denmark to put $1 billion in there, and they did. And he wanted more autonomy for Greenland. Maybe they would like to vote their interests, which we support them. And then he was trying to remind the world of two things. China and Russia go right through the Arctic Circle, and there's a lot of rich natural resources there. And Greenland is utterly defenseless. And when they get in a jam, they're going to call us. So why don't we just admit it? And that worked. Greenland's on the national coat of arms of the royal family of Denmark, suddenly. So that worked. And then we get to the art of the deal with Canada. And that hasn't worked because Canada has not agreed in a year or two to make their 2% investment, and they just feel they have a God-given right because they say, we sell oil to you at a discount. No, you couldn't sell it to anybody else at that price. And so he demagogued that issue, and he got what he wanted. He got what he wanted. He got elected on nationalism. These awful Yankees to the south, they're going to invade us. They're going to make us our 50. Yeah, that worked, Mr. Carney, but you're an international globalist. You are a citizen, I think, unless you've changed your citizenship, of Ireland, Great Britain, and Canada. You were head of the Bank of England, as well as the Bank of Canada. So you're a globalist, but you got what you wanted, and now you've got a problem. You've got to go over to Donald Trump, and you've got to say, these tariffs will kill us. But you've killed Donald Trump as an image in Canada. I mean, he helped himself, obviously, but you so demonized him, and you so fabricated the idea that you might be invaded and be a 51st state when you knew that was not true, and you knew you were running a deficit, and you knew about your defense. What did he not do in that campaign? He didn't say this: fellow Canadians, to defend ourselves from rhetorical attacks from the president, we must be strong. We must next year spend $40 billion more in defense and partner with the United States and meet our NATO requirements. And because we've got a good customer that buys our heavy sulfurous crude interior oil, we're going to try to find things that we can import from the United States to get that surplus, not down to zero, but he didn't do that. And now he's got to do it. And he's going to go and mouth off like he did before he left, and then he's going to go in, and I think Trump is going to say, I'm not interested. And it's too bad, because everybody likes Canada. They don't like us as much as we like them, probably, but they demagogued the issue in a way that they could have handled it. And we knew what Trump was trying to do. He was trying to do a Panama, Greenland, get some traction and rectify a situation that should have been rectified 20 years ago.
If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest content.